Hello and welcome to Atheist Viewpoint. I'm Dennis Horvitz.
And I'm David Silverman.
And today we are going to be discussing atheist parenting. And I can think of no better subject for this subject than my partner over here, Dave Silverman, who is an atheist and a parent.
Last time I checked, I was both.
They're still letting you come home, I guess.
They are still letting me come home.
So, before we kind of get into the whole heart of this thing, I probably should get a little background. You are married.
I am married.
How long have you been married?
Been married to my college sweetheart's best friend for 17 years. Do the math. My college sweetheart's best friend for 17 years. She is a theistic Jew. So she actually believes in God. Very, very supportive. In fact, 10 years ago, when I suggested that I may want to be, it was more than 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, and I said I might want to become an atheist activist, my wife actually pushed me to do it.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, do you think that's because, and maybe we're going to get a little off the subject, do you think that Jews tend to be more supportive of separation of church and state due to the persecution under theistic?
I think it's because Jews tend to be more tolerant of atheists than Christians. I don't.
That is true.
Yes. My wife is a very strong proponent of the separation of church and state, but in the Jewish religion,
right?
It's much more. It's much more okay to question and argue. The old Jewish adage, if you get two Jews in a room, you get three opinions.
That's true.
It is kind of true. And it is part of the Jewish thing, whether you call it the religious part or the non-religious part.
Cultural.
It is a Jewish thing to argue, and you've got in all these sects of Judaism, and my wife used to be Orthodox, and part of that is sitting down and arguing the heck out of them.
Endlessly. They love to do it.
They thrive on it. They believe it makes them better people.
And of course, what you said. About
frankly,
you also you don't see a lot of Jews going around saying, "Oi, what are we going to do about the atheists?"
No,
it's like not an emergency.
No, it's not an emergency because Jews don't have the whole concept of soul saving. They do not have the concept of proselytization. They do not have a need to make you Jewish. In fact, it is against their religion to proselytize to non-Jews to become Jewish.
Right.
In many sects. I'm generalizing there, but it's not like Christianity where
it's part
somebody who
you
loves
bring
you.
Somebody in, right?
Well, in Christianity, if somebody loves you and believes in Christianity,
then of course they would want to save.
They would want to save your soul. Judaism doesn't have that. So when my wife, when I brought it up, when we got married,
the Jews, if they love you, they feed you.
They feed you a lot.
Basically,
they feed you a lot. They feed you a lot, and as an atheist, I eat. So it works out pretty well.
The best of both worlds, apparently.
It works out pretty well.
Yeah. So you've been married for 17 years, and you have a child.
I have a child. My little.
She's a doll. I've met her.
She's wonderful. She is wonderful. She is, in fact, as we tape this today, she is getting on a plane alone for the first time.
Wow.
And she is going to Camp Quest. It is her third year at Camp Quest.
And she must have a great time.
Loves it. She loves Camp Quest. Camp Quest, for those of you who don't know, is a summer camp, an overnight summer camp, 1 week long. They have it in different parts of the country. It's for atheist children. It's not an atheist proselytization camp. It's not there to make a kid an atheist. It is there for atheists to go and have camp. I was a counselor. I was honored to be a counselor at Camp Quest last year and the year before.
Really?
This year I chose to take a week off with my wife because we haven't had a week off since since my daughter was born.
Wow!
But
good for you.
Yeah, so we're going to go off and do husband and wife things. My daughter makes lifelong friends. They're atheistic friends. They don't judge each other. Some kids are not atheists who go to Camp Quest.
Right, it's open to everyone.
It's open to everyone. Nobody judges. There aren't. In the last 2 years that I've gone, there were no fundamentalists, there were no Christian kids, and there were no theistic kids, but there were kids who had doubts about atheism. There were kids who were free thinkers. There were kids who were just generically non-religious.
Right.
And there's no
But in theory, a religious child could go to this camp without any pressure about them being religious.
That's correct. If a religious child were to go to Camp Quest, they would hear about famous atheists. They would meet a lot of atheist kids. They would do archery and canoeing and
just
swimming.
Fun stuff that you do in camp.
95% normal stuff. And I'll tell you one more thing. If a religious kid went to Camp Quest, they would come back as a religious kid. Because they don't proselytize.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
They would come back with serious questions because the kids, the children, being atheists, being pent up, being alone all their lives as far as atheism is concerned, they're very, very excited about the possibility of discussing atheism. So they discuss it among themselves a lot. But there's no pressure, there's no pushing, there's no proselytization, there's no recruitment.
Which brings me to my next question. Are you raising your daughter as an atheist?
I am raising my daughter in a mixed marriage.
Right.
Okay.
So what does that
mean? That means that I am inherently a pretty strict parent. Okay. I believe in discipline. I believe that if you give a kid boundaries, that the kid reacts to those boundaries considerably. So one of the things that we have is my daughter is not allowed to ask me one question and my wife the same question. Okay, you can't do that. If Daddy says no, you can't go ask Mom.
I was right.
You can do if she does that, she gets punished.
Right, to get around.
Unless it's religion.
Right.
Okay. If it's a religious-based question, I mean, she can't ask me for permission, get a no, and go ask Mom.
Yeah, well, you're talking about permission.
But now I'm talking about if she comes to me and asks my opinion about religion, she's going to get something. And she knows very well that if she asks the same question to Mom, she's going to get a different question, different answer. And we teach her that it's okay to ask both of us, and that it's okay for us to disagree.
Yes, right.
Okay? When we got married, when we got engaged, my wife and I sat down and we decided how we were going to raise this child. And we made a verbal contract, okay? The verbal contract was that our child would go to Hebrew school, but that our child would not go to a Hebrew school that preached anti-atheism.
Right.
Okay? Our child would not go to a Hebrew school where she would learn that atheism was bad.
Right.
This was our individual contract that we worked together so that there wouldn't be a conflict, so we had everything out in the open. As it turned out, we found this wonderful group called the Workman's Circle, which is Jewish atheists.
Yes.
Jewish atheists. So they actually have Sunday school where they learn about the Jewish culture without the Jewish religion, which in my specific case is perfect.
Right. And do you know if they have a website or?
I don't know if they have a website. I'm sure they do. I believe it's workmancircle.org, but you can certainly Google it and you'll find it. It is specifically for Jewish atheists. However, we do have a lot of people in our group that are Unitarians or mixed marriages. And you go and they just learn about the Jewish culture and there's no religion. So if I can answer, my wife took on the responsibility. This was another compromise.
Yeah.
My wife took on the responsibility of teaching my daughter religion on her own. As a result, maybe not as a result, but as it turns out, my daughter is as atheistic as I am.
Right. Do you think there's a difference between teaching religion or teaching about religion and teaching belief? I think they're two different things. You can teach about religion, you can teach about culture.
Well, yeah, I think the Workman's Circle does teach about religion.
Yeah.
And I think it does teach about culture.
That's very good. I'm glad that's great information.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's tons of them. Right. But it's like Unitarianism for Jews.
Yeah.
Only even a little bit softer.
Yeah.
But Hildy teaches belief.
Yeah.
My wife teaches belief. She does believe in God, and she says that without apology. Okay. And you've seen my daughter. My daughter looks exactly like my wife. Okay. But I've been an atheist since I was 6. I can remember the moment that I became non-religious. You know, how atheistic can a 6-year-old be, okay? But I remember my first serious doubts about religion. And those thoughts still stick with me today. That moment I can remember. Backseat of my mother's car, backseat, right side, I remember the moment.
Wow.
Exactly, okay?